everyone and welcome back to my channel. Now I've got something exciting to talk you through and get excited about, but essentially I teamed up with Ami Paris to create two knitwear pieces that are going to be auctioned off for charity, for Kaleidoscope, which is a charity that is, extremely, I find to be extremely important for the queer community, helping save many, many lives and also getting people out of danger when they need it most. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the design process of the jumpers, the making of them, and then a little bit of behind the scenes from the photo shoot, and then the finished products in terms of the actual pictures. So I'm just going to give you a little flash quickly here of what the outcome of the two jumpers look like. So I'm now going to take you all the way back to the very beginning when these were like design concepts. So creating two jumpers, I wanted to create something that was very iconically Ami. Now I don't know if you may have seen recently on my Instagram, I've been wearing jumpers like this. I wanted to start off making something that was like, when you look at it, you're like, okay, Ami Paris, that's it. So I started off with a very classic outline of what I thought the jumper would be looking like. So what I went for in the end was a drop shoulder. So in knitting, you can do lots of different ways of like constructing your garments. So you can either have it so it's like a raglan, which kind of like increases here, and then the sleeves kind of like all go in, and it all fits very nicely on your shoulder, on the seams and all that kind of stuff. Or a drop shoulder, which is kind of two square panels, then it comes down, it like slight shaping on the shoulders, but it comes down and you see a seam here. So if you're looking at your knitwear now, you pick out a jumper, you might see some knitwear that when you put it on, it drops down and like the seam is here for the sleeves, and then some that where it sits up a little bit higher. So I went for the drop shoulder. Now, I've made drop shoulder jumpers before, but I wanted to get the color palette right so that it was pride, but yeah, it's still like a subtle amount of pride, so it's like a bit more pastel-y and the colours are a little bit more muted to make it a little bit more wearable on the everyday. So this is what I came up with, and as you can see around the outside of it, I've put arrows of what I thought, pastel colours to make it more wearable. A drop shoulder with a visible seam feature. So instead of it just being an invisible seam where you can't really tell where the shoulder's line is, I wanted it to be visible. So it was like almost, it was done inside out so that it made it more visible so you could see where the shoulder, because I don't know, I like that design feature where you can see that it's been handmade. So I did an invisible seam on the top so you couldn't see where it was seamed here, but here it's visible, which I think is quite a nice design feature. Originally, I have put here no neck ribbing on neck to feel more casual, but actually when I put it on, it felt like it needed some neck ribbing. So what I did was the ribbing around the neck and around all of the other places. So, and then I originally had planned for the logo to be in white, but then when I tried it in white, it didn't quite feel right or look right. So I embroidered it over the top in this like deep purple-y red color, so that it had a little bit, because we had like red, orange, yellow, green, light blue, dark blue, but we needed something that was like a little bit more, I don't know, I just feel like it needed a bit of a oof. And I felt like the dark purple did that. And also the ribbing that I did on the bottom and along the sleeves is a 2x2 rib. So instead of it being like knit 1 purl 1, which is like traditional 1x1 rib, I did knit 2 purl 2, which created like, I don't know, it creates a bit more of a stretchy texture and a bit more of a, it's a more visible rib, which I quite like. That was the design for that one. And then you can see the color palette I used with the balls of yarn on the bed there and some on the floor. Like I wanted it to be like fun and bright, but not all of the colors to be like as primary as what it might be in a rainbow, for example. You can see that the logo on it like really pops when it's in that dark purpley red color, which I really like. And you can also see my knitting needles are in there around the neck because it just didn't feel like it like came together without some neckline. So I got the neckline in there and used some circular needles to knit all the way around. I actually made the ribbing was with 5mm needles, and then the actual body part was with 8mm needles, which the same type of yarn, so it created like a tighter knit around the ribbing and then a more looser, comfier knit throughout the jumper itself. And then I got to try it on for the first time, and you can see that my neckline just made it all come together when I had the neckline on properly. And you can see the visible seams that I've been talking about, and it just created like a really cool little jumper, I thought. That was the original, that's like the traditional shape jumper. So the jumper that is very, it's a normal length, normal arm length, so it just fits like a normal medium sample size, if you like. I made it to fit me. The next jumper, I wanted to get a little bit more creative with. Thought maybe doing like a bubble one with like a puff sleeve, bubble stitch in the rainbow colors. like I thought about doing a similar jumper to what I had already made, but with some cables to make it a little bit more interesting. Then I also thought, well actually, what about if I change those cable colors and maybe take inspiration from the other Ami jumper that I had worn previously. So I've got this orange Ami jumper that's cabled, and it's like a real interesting fit and cut. So it's like a real cropped top, but then really long on the arms. And I really love that. There was something that was like really, I don't know, it felt really cool and a little bit different. And I thought, you know what, that's gonna be something that's really, you know, if you're gonna raffle something off for charity, make it like an iconic piece and not just something that can be standardly made. I also initially started it in like a thicker and chunkier yarn, which is in this really hot pink color, and I thought, you know, I did this little like test to see what it would look like, and I just felt like it looked too chunky, and I wanted it to be a little bit more, I don't say minimal because it definitely hasn't ended up being minimal, but being more like a closer knit, to take inspiration from the orange jumper. So I did all of the measurements based on the jumper that I'd already worn. So I measured how long it was, I measured the sleeves, how long they were, how long the back was, and then created a gauge based on that. And the design that I settled on was it wasn't going to be all rainbow all the way up. I just wanted to create like a rainbow stripe along the middle of it, but then having this really cool oversized arms, cable going up this one side, cable going up the other, and then all these cables up the front, just to create like a real intricate looking piece. You know, when I was in LA, that was when I started knitting it. So I started knitting it on the plane, or just before I got on the plane, and it started off with, you know, just having the back done. And so I had like the back done, and then, you know, you can see me knitting in my seat, and I was, you know, when you knit on a plane, it takes up a lot of your time, which is just fantastic, because then you just don't have, like, when you're like, if you've got a 10-hour flight, it just goes so quickly. But then that's when I started the cabling, and I changed the colors of the cables every 6 rows, and that which created the stripe. So I did the same ribbing as on the other jumper, the 2x2 ribbing to start with, in the 5mm, and then instead of changing to 8mm needles, I changed to 6.5, just to create a little bit more of a tighter knit. And the cables were, as you can see from my notes, are quite complicated. Well, they're not complicated, it looks really complicated with all of the pattern that I'd written down. It was a really intense, because I had to work out how many stitches across and how long it was going to be, and then had to figure out how many stitches that I was going to be able to work with cables, and ones that I wasn't going to be able to work with cables, and creating cables of different sizes and different directions. So it looks really complicated, but actually when you know how to do a cable, it becomes, I don't know, it's quite fun actually to like mix up the order of the cables and experiment with it a little bit. Then, as you can see, once I had got to a certain point where the neckline was going to be, I then started working one side, and then I came back and worked the other side, and that's how I created the neckline. And then once that neckline was created, I was then able to sew them together and then get on with making the arms. But it took me a very, very long time, like many hours and many days, to be able to get it finished. But I've got it finished, which is the most important part. So when I was away on holiday, like each morning I'd wake up and I'd get a couple of hours knitting in and just get going. Like here I'm making a sleeve, or one of the sleeves, which has got the cable down the middle of it. And you know, I chose this like rose color, like a real light pink. It's because I was gonna do it in like pale, in like cream or white as the other rest of the color, but it felt like too jarring when I looked at the colors next to each other. So that's why I went for that like light pink color, and it just made it feel a little bit more, I don't know, of a piece, rather than it being like too contrasty. And as you can see in this picture, you can start to see how the jumper is starting to take shape, and where you have the cable on just one strip of cable up the sleeve, and then I'm gradually making it bigger so that it fits around the arms, so that the armholes fit. While I was making this, I was knitting everywhere, by the pool, and as you can see, like here, I'm just knitting, sitting on a sun lounger, having a good old time, knitting away, and I was absolutely loving it. There was something about being able to sit outside and sit and chill and be able to have a bit of a knit that just got me to it. And after a lot of hard work, I finally finished it all together, sewed it up, and was able to say that the garment was finished. So once those two pieces were finished, it was time to do the photo shoot, which was really fun. I got to go there, and I mean, here's a little roundup of what happened. Right, I'm on set for the Ami shoot, to shoot the jumpers that I've made for the Pride campaign, which is super exciting. Had my hair done by the lovely Brady here. It's all going good. Face is nearly on.
Start it up!
interlude, there was also a before and after manicure. So I don't have after manicures, I have terrible nails, I bite them, I bite my skin, whatever it is. So here's the before, and here's the after. I mean, can you tell the difference? I don't know. I feel like you can. I feel like it's quite good, but I had such a fun time on the shoot, and I'm really happy with the finished pieces and the images. I mean, you're gonna see more on my Instagram and Ami's Instagram and all that kind of stuff about how to enter, but all of the details of how to enter and how to get involved in the auction, and there's also gonna be an NFT. All of the details will be in the description below, so get involved, and I'm excited to see who wins the jumper. It's gonna be fun. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that little insight into my creative process, and I will see you all again very soon. Bye.